There is no doubt going to be, certainly between now, running up to the next general election, during the general election, and probably in the aftermath of the next general election, a very, very close examination of what happened to the rural vote. Because traditionally, the rural vote has always been very, very strongly conservative, very strongly indeed. However, as we were about to sort of hear from this piece, we're just going to go diving into a bit of this piece because this sort of backs up what I've been saying for quite a while. Um, you know, the Conservatives have been ignoring the rural vote for years. And remember, we've had 13 years of Tory rule at this point. There is no one else to blame. You can't just say, "Oh, well, that's a Labour thing." Well, the last time Labour in power was over 14 years ago. You can't really blame them for anything at this point. You're the ones who have been in power for this long, and you will be arguing to be in power for another 4 to 5 years at the next general election. Can you really justify saying that you are going to help rural voters or rural areas by voting for you again? And one of the things that is mentioned in the article, but we won't go that far into it, um, is a quote from, I think it's Tim Farron, leader of the Liberal Democrats, and he basically says someone came up to him at the farmers' conference and asked him a question: how do we get the Conservatives to take the rural vote seriously? And his response was, just stop voting for them. and it has been that simple. And over the past couple of by-elections and local elections, we have seen not only rural voters not vote for Conservatives, but they are changing their votes. They are changing to Labour and, very, very interestingly, the Liberal Democrats, because it is the Liberal Democrats who have won in these rural areas. So while the title of the article, the rural vote is up for grabs if Labour can make hay, I would far more say it's more likely the Liberal Democrats are going to make hay of the rural vote come the next general election. So we're just going to go back into this and read into this just to show you how hostile the rural vote has gone against the Conservatives, because it has done some huge shifting, and this is going to come massively into play at the next general election. So, before we go, oh, pardon me, oh dear. Before we do go diving into that, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and one donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. And like I say, there's the YouTube thank you button, the Pony Club down below as well. And of course, do remember to ring the bell as well. So let's go over to this and just see just how much this has actually happened. Just it is unbelievable to say that, since 2019 that the rural vote would go this way. Certainly as a core block for the Tories, it should be something that should matter to them immensely. But over the past 13 years, and even more recently, they are really, really showing that they do not care about the rural vote. So when Keir Starmer, pardon me, when Keir Starmer takes to the stage at the National Farmers Union conference next week, he may find his audience more receptive than expected. And it's not just, I suspect, Keir Starmer. It would be certainly the Liberal Democrat leader as well. If they went, they would certainly find their message certainly a lot more receptive as well. So the rural vote is swinging away from the Conservatives, and seats in these communities that have been true blue for years could be going to Labour or the Liberal Democrats at the next election if recent opinion polls are borne out by reality. And that is the key thing, whether these opinion polls do come to pass. Now, very often, certainly in opinion polls, they can get them wrong. Of course, infamously, Theresa May did in 2017, where she went for what she expected to be an absolute wipeout victory. But the way the general election played out didn't, shall we say, deliver the victory that she wanted. But of course, what the polls were telling her one thing, reality delivered something else. So polls can be a good indication of where votes may happen, but obviously it's ultimately what happens on the day of the vote. And of course, what happens can happen during the general election campaign. That can sometimes be massively influential as well, just as Theresa May found out to very much her dismay. So, will they be borne out reality? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to have a general election. So, but this is how bad it has become. So, Theresa Coffey, the environmental secretary, faced tough questions and a very chilly reception late last year at her first public outing. She had chosen to address the countryside landowners and the Country Land and Business Association, which previously would have been one of the safest audiences. Just imagine that. So, this audience that she would be speaking to, again, core Tory voters, there should be nothing challenging from this. But no, she faced tough questions and a very chilly reception. That's bad news when your core audience is responding to you in that way. But a botched agricultural strategy has left the land managers out of pocket, and trade deals that undercut UK farmers have led to widespread anger in the sector. Not to mention the scourge of second homes, cuts to public services in remote areas, the lack of connection to broadband, the national grid, and 13 years of Tory rule have failed to bring many rural areas into the 21st century. And interestingly enough, later on, when they talked to one of the people there from the Central Land Management, one of the things he says is they've cut bus routes. They've put no money into these bus routes. You know, we've said before, local transport and transportation is really, really very important, and it's something the Tories have diminished very much to their cost for years. And it's something that Labour has talked about in the past couple of things they've said about bringing sort of bus management back into sort of local ownership rather than to have these big firms be dictating what they are. And we've talked about localism, having, you know, local councils the power to choose their own economic ideas and what they want to invest the money in, rather than being told what to spend the money in. It's here's the money, go spend it what you think is best for your area. The localism idea, I think, will become central, certainly from what we have seen from the Gordon Brown Constitutional Review report. We've heard constantly from Labour, from Yvette Cooper, from Keir Starmer, how important local communities getting to decide on what they want is important. So this devolution drive becoming sort of a localism factor, I think, will become a very big, important, and potentially very big vote winner, because a lot of people sort of poo-poo this idea of giving local people more power. But today, I think it's Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper today are going to be giving a speech about how Labour will intend to deal with local drug gangs and how they intend to deal with that. And again, it does sound like it is tending to be very, very much based in a local solution for local areas. So this rural vote, I think, is going to be a big decider. I really do. And it will be a big decider in the factor that this will take away seats from the Tories. This whole blue wall that they have, will Labour win seats down there? I think they will. I think they absolutely will. But more importantly, I think it's going to be the Lib Dems that take those seats. I think the Lib Dems are going to find that they're the ones who take those seats. They're the ones who are going to make hay from this. Because so far, when you look at sort of the polls and you look at past by-elections in these areas, it's not Labour who's been making the wins. It has been the Lib Dems. Now, why has that been? Because so far, they have been the only ones that have actually had offerings for locals. Like, this is our plan for like a rural economy and a rural area, which is something that Labour does seem to be catching up on. Um, and we'll see what happens when Keir Starmer addresses the National Farmers Union next week. We'll see what the reception of the NUF is to sort of Keir Starmer and to sort of Labour's proposals, but we'll have to see what they are eventually. But at the moment, it seems to me the Lib Dems are the ones in the lead for this rural vote. So they are going to have, I think, a lot of very big wins. And one of the things that they do talk about in the article is the fact that Cornwall could very, very easily uh, go from a very blue dominated conservative domination to potentially none at all. Like, being like the Conservatives lose all their Cornwall seats. That alone would be massive to happen on a general election night. So, we've said this before, but you ignore your core voters at your peril. And the Conservatives have ignored the rural vote for years now. And now that ignoring is now coming back to bite them. And it is going to result in them losing a lot of seats. And I mean a lot of seats come the next general election. Whether it happens this year, whether it happens next year, we don't know. But we'll probably find out sooner rather than later, I highly suspect. But as always, thank you very much for joining me. And of course, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Of course, do remember to ring the bell. And of course, we'll see you all next time.